That night, I hid a gift box behind my back. Inside was a positive pregnancy test. But before I could hug him, before I could say, "We're going to be parents," he said something that shattered my entire world. "Hi, I'm Claire." Have you ever experienced a shock like that? A single sentence, a single moment that broke your heart into pieces? Share your story, because maybe, just maybe, your story today could save someone tomorrow. Michael and I had been married for 5 years, always longing for a child. Lately, my body had felt unusually tired, with waves of drowsiness hitting me out of nowhere, and a constant heavy sensation in my lower belly. As an OB/GYN, I knew exactly what those signs meant. And when that red line showed up clearly on the pregnancy test, I wanted to call him right away, to scream over the phone that we were going to be parents. But instead, I put my phone away and thought of surprising him. During lunch break, I ran to a gift shop, picked out a small, pretty box, carefully wrapped the test stick with tissue paper and shiny ribbon. I smiled, imagining Michael's face when he opened the box, how his eyes would light up. After work, I went home, placed the gift on the table, heart racing like a child. Lately, Michael had been busy with a new project at his tech startup. He often came home late, tired eyes, but still wearing that warm smile for me. I dozed off on the sofa, hiding the gift behind my back, waiting for the familiar sound of the key turning. The moment I heard it, I sat up. Michael walked in, looking more drained than usual. His tie was loose around his neck, jacket slung over his arm. The firm, sharp face I once knew, now sunken and lifeless. I ran to him, threw myself into his arms like always, but he subtly shifted away. I froze, heart sinking. "I just came from a party. I smell like alcohol," he said quietly, avoiding my eyes. I could smell it. But not just the alcohol. There was also a hint of sweet, unfamiliar perfume. As a director, it wasn't strange for Michael to be around female clients at events. I told myself not to overthink. But a sudden wave of nausea hit me. I swallowed it back down, not wanting to raise suspicion. I tightened my grip on the gift box behind me, ready to hand it over and break the tension. But before I could say anything, Michael spoke, his voice heavy like a stone. "Claire, I want a divorce." My hand clenched the ribbon. It snapped. "What did you say?" I whispered, thinking I misheard. He took a deep breath, finally looking me in the eyes. But it wasn't the gentleness I once knew. It was cold seriousness, with a trace of regret. "Claire, I've cheated on you. I want a divorce." The words were like a sharp blade, slicing straight through my heart. I stood frozen, scanning his face for any sign this was a joke, but there was none. Only his eyes, full of guilt but not hesitation. He dropped to his knees, covered his face with both hands, voice choked. "I'm sorry, Claire. I betrayed you. I betrayed our marriage. I'll leave everything behind. The savings, the house, the car. I'll liquidate my shares in the company and give it all to you." I looked at him, the man who had once knelt in front of me 5 years ago, not to apologize, but to propose. That day, he tricked me into thinking we'd won a free photo shoot at a famous studio. I'd done my makeup carefully, put on a ball gown, and stepped into a sky garden filled with pink roses. My favorite. As the sun set, Michael appeared in a tailored suit, looking like a prince, eyes sparkling with love. He knelt down, holding a ring, and said, "Claire, will you marry me? I love you for the rest of my life." I cried so hard back then, and he couldn't hold back his emotions either. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. But now, here he was again, on his knees, not to promise forever, but to end everything. I collapsed onto the sofa, my body heavy like all the strength had been drained out of me, and hurriedly hid the gift box behind the cushion so he wouldn't see it. I used every ounce of energy I had to stay calm, took a deep breath, trying to swallow the lump rising in my throat. My voice trembled, but I forced it to be clear. Who is she? When did it start? Michael stood there, frozen, staring at me, his breathing growing rapid, chest heaving as if he was trying to hold back. His face had turned pale, his eyes avoiding mine, unable to meet my gaze. He stammered. She's a new intern. 3 months ago, there was a night I got drunk. I inhaled deeply again, but this time it felt like my heart was being squeezed, pain spreading across my chest, each heartbeat slicing through me. What a cheap, cliché story. A drunk man, a young girl, and then everything falls apart. I never imagined it would happen in my own marriage, with the man I trusted completely. I stared at him, my voice sharper. Michael, you noticed her a long time ago, didn't you? Don't blame the alcohol. Don't pretend it was an accident. He didn't answer, just looked down. That silence was its own confession, silently tearing my heart to pieces. 3 months. So all the signs had been there, and I was just too blind to see. I remember clearly. 3 months ago, he suddenly got unusually busy. Meetings running late into the night, sometimes not even coming home. I told myself it was just work stress, that he was working hard for our future. But now, those images rush back like a slow-motion film, stabbing me with every frame. 3 months ago, he was constantly texting on his phone, even when we were lying next to each other in bed. He used to never touch his phone once he was home. He once said, so warmly and sincerely, "We're both so busy, so when we're together, we have to be fully present, no distractions." But that night, he stared at his screen, the corner of his lips curling into a faint smile. I glanced over and saw the profile picture on the other end, an animated character, cute and bubbly, on Instagram. I asked, half joking, half serious, "Who are you chatting with that's making you so happy?" Michael instantly turned off his screen, placed the phone on the nightstand, then wrapped one arm around me, his voice casual, as if it was nothing. No one, just an intern at work. She couldn't handle a client and asked for my help. Bit of a dummy. My heart tightened at that moment. I know, when a man says a woman is beautiful or smart, that's just a compliment. But when he calls her a dummy, with that kind of smile, it means he's already caught feelings. And me, trusting my husband too much, brushed aside that little sense of unease, convincing myself it was just my imagination. Now, sitting here, I lower my gaze, thinking my heart had gone numb, yet it still aches with every throb. The pain spreads to my lower belly, dull and heavy, like a reminder of the unborn child quietly resting inside. Michael kept repeating, "I'm sorry, Claire. I'm sorry." His voice growing fainter, like a hopeless whisper. He truly didn't love me anymore. He couldn't even give me a proper explanation, just those empty apologies. I lifted my head, looked at him carefully, seeing straight into his soul. The face that once comforted me was now nothing but pain. My voice was cold, but inside, I was burning. Pack your things and get out of my life, forever. A man who betrays you is not worth holding on to. Even sharing the same house as him felt suffocating. The air around me thickened, weighing down on my chest. He slowly stood up, his steps heavy as he walked to the bedroom. The sound of drawers opening clattered in the silence, and the rustle of clothes stuffed into a suitcase sounded like the breaking pieces of our marriage. Before long, he wheeled the suitcase out, standing before me, face ashen, eyes red. The dull pain in my lower belly pulsed again and again, making it impossible to speak. I just sat there, gripping the armrest of the sofa to keep steady. Seeing me silent, Michael turned around sadly and walked away, his steps sluggish, like he was carrying the weight of the world. In that moment, through the blur of my tears, I caught a glint in his eyes. Was that a tear? The lock clicked softly, dry and final. like a full stop to everything. I forced myself to speak, my voice hoarse but still managing to ask, "Why?" Michael's face went ghost white, drained of all color. He stopped, his hand gripping the doorknob tightly, voice shaking. "I'm sorry, Claire. I was Ashley's first. I have to take responsibility." And just like that, in a flash, his figure disappeared behind the closed door. Emotions swelled inside me like a thick fog, swallowing me whole, pain, anger, and a bitterness. I couldn't hold back the tears. They streamed hot down my face, but then I laughed, a dry, bitter laugh echoing in the empty room. What a ridiculous reason to take responsibility for some girl's first time, while abandoning the responsibility he had toward the wife, who stood by him for 5 years, and the unborn child he never even gave a chance to meet. The pale moonlight cast shadows on the wall, pulling me back to the early days when I met Michael. Back then, I was just like Ashley is now, a young, naive intern full of enthusiasm. Michael had just graduated from college, starting a business with his friends. One time while playing basketball, he broke his arm and came to the orthopedic department where I worked. That day, he was anxiously waiting for an important client call, but his phone had died. At that time, portable chargers weren't common. He walked along the hospital hallway, asking each person if they had the same phone charger. Coincidentally, I did. I lent it to him, and he asked to follow my Instagram so he could contact me when returning it. Who would have thought that from there, we would talk nonstop? One freezing winter night, I finished a late shift and randomly posted a status, craving a Starbucks latte. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Michael was panting on the line. "Claire, come downstairs and get your latte." I couldn't believe it. In that biting cold night, he'd run around to find me a hot latte. When I saw him, he scratched his head shyly, forehead beaded with sweat. "Sorry, one hand's in a cast. The other's carrying latte and trying to call an Uber, so I got here late." Looking at the handsome man in front of me, my heart felt like it was being filled with honey. So when he confessed his love, I said yes without hesitation. Friends asked, "That easy? No tests?" I smiled. He doesn't need to be tested. Now, that same innocence stabs right back into my heart like a sharp blade. I remember our first intimate night. Michael picked me up after a night shift and saw the dark circles under my eyes, and said with concern, "Stop cramming onto buses. Let me take you somewhere to rest." He rented a small Airbnb. The room was tiny, the bathroom faucet leaking, each drip loud and annoying. Michael tugged my hand. "How can we sleep in a place like this? Come on, let's go to a hotel." I held him back. "Don't waste it. I just need sleep." After washing up, I collapsed onto the bed. Michael sat on the sofa at the foot of the bed, staring at his phone. "I've set it on silent. Just go to sleep." Honestly, I felt a little disappointed, but my body was so tired I fell asleep quickly. When I woke up, it was already dark. Michael was still on the sofa, head tilted, dozing off. I softly called out, "Michael!" He startled awake. "What's wrong? Did the dripping wake you?" "Sorry, I forgot to change the towel." Turns out, while I was sleeping, he had put a towel under the faucet so the dripping wouldn't disturb me. My heart felt so warm. I kneeled at the foot of the bed, gazing at him. "Michael, don't you want to do it with me?" "Do what?" He looked confused. "Make love." The word escaped from my throat. The next moment, his handsome face leaned in, a passionate kiss erasing all the distance between us. Before Michael, I had a boyfriend. I'm not old-fashioned. When the feelings are right, some things just happen naturally. After we made love, he kissed my forehead, but I noticed he didn't look happy. I asked, "What's wrong?" He paused, then gently said, "Claire, I don't care about your past. But from now on, I promise to be by your side, to accept everything about you." I curled up in his arms, hugging him tightly, leaving no space between us. Those words still echo in my ears. And yet now, for such a childish reason, he left me. A man in love can turn lies into words full of affection. The sharp pain in my lower belly returned, mixing with the tangled memories. I felt like I was being torn apart, slowly, unbearably. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was that the man who once swore to protect me for life was now the one who delivered the fatal blow. In the darkness, I picked up my phone and called a colleague. I took exactly 1 week off, trying to calm myself so the baby inside me could remain stable. When I returned to the clinic, I walked into my office, doing my best to push away all memories of Michael. I sat at my desk, bracing myself for a busy day. But when the patient's name popped up on the screen, my heart skipped a beat. Ashley Miller. I froze, telling myself it was just a coincidence. I had never met her. There was no way it could be her. No way. The exam room door swung open. A young woman walked in on thin, high heels, long, glossy brown curls cascading down her back, carrying a sweet, familiar perfume that sent a chill through my body, the same scent I'd smelled on Michael's shirt that night. She sat in the chair across from me, eyes locked on mine, cold and defiant. Her immature features didn't match the overly curled hair and bold red lips, creating a forced look, like she was trying too hard to appear older than she was. I avoided her eyes, focused on the computer screen, my voice dry and professional, as always. "What symptoms are you experiencing?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed a pregnancy test on the desk. "Doctor," she said, voice soft but laced with provocation, "I'm pregnant." I took a quiet breath, trying to keep my hands from trembling as I typed. My voice remained steady, as if this were any other patient. "When was your last period?" "The 8th of last month," she replied, still staring at me, clearly waiting for a reaction. I glanced at the screen. It was the 18th today. "When was your last time having unprotected sex?" She paused, then smiled, a razor-sharp smile. "Every day," she said, voice dripping with implication. Then she raised her hand, counting on her fingers slowly, as if putting on a show. "My boyfriend doesn't like using those things. But I guess what you really want to know is the first time after my period that we didn't use protection, right?" I can answer that. The 16th of last month, at apartment 802, building 12, Riverside Heights. Your home. Your bed. A suffocating silence filled the small room. My hands shook. The typing became choppy and broken. The 16th, on that night, I was working the night shift. And he brought her into our home. The nausea rose sharply, not from pregnancy, but from the vile truth crawling up my chest. I couldn't hold it back. I bent over and dry heaved into the trash can beside the desk, the harsh sound echoing through the silent room. Ashley stood, looking down at me from above, her lips curling into a mocking smile. "What's wrong, doctor? Don't tell me. You're pregnant too?" She paused, then added, her tone biting, "Oh, right, that can't be. Michael said you two have been trying for 3 years with no success. You can't have children." I shot up, my hand clutching the water glass on the desk so tightly my knuckles turned white. I glared at her, unable to believe those cruel words came out of her mouth, and worse, that they came from Michael. "You!" I choked, struggling to contain the fire of rage burning inside me. Ashley crossed her arms, eyeing me with contempt. "What? You're gonna throw water at me? Careful, or you'll lose that job. Word is your family's poor, and it took everything you had to finally become a real doctor, right? I suggest you sit down nicely and write me the referral." My heart felt crushed, every beat painful and suffocating. Outside the door, patients were still waiting in line, and the nurse occasionally glanced through the door crack, sensing the tension inside. I gathered every bit of strength I had, kept my voice even. "Do a blood test. Check progesterone and HCG levels." I slid the referral form across the desk, my hands still shaking, but I didn't let her see my weakness. Ashley took the form, strutted off in her sky-high heels, looking smug like she had just won. At the door, she suddenly stopped, turned around, and said in a syrupy sweet but cold voice, "Oh, one more thing. Don't think ignoring his texts means Michael will come back to you. I'm pregnant now, so you'd better cooperate and get those divorce papers signed." Then she slammed the door shut, the loud bang hitting me like a hammer straight to the heart. I forced myself through the morning cases, but by lunchtime, I felt frozen, sitting motionless at my desk, eyes staring blankly into space. A nurse knocked on the door, peeked her head in, and asked with concern, "Dr. Clare, you don't look well. Should I bring you some lunch?" I shook my head, forcing a faint smile. "No need, thank you." The door gently closed, leaving me alone in the stifling room. I opened my computer and pulled up Ashley Miller's medical file, but it was empty. She'd never even taken the tests, only came here to flaunt. I traced the phone number in her record and found her Instagram account, a feed of public love notes like an open diary, while I was just the betrayed spectator. The first story read, "It's so hot, craving ice cream," followed by a photo of Haagen-Dazs, captioned, "He didn't want to make me feel left out, so he bought ice cream for the whole office just so I could have some too." My heart tightened. Haagen-Dazs, the kind of ice cream I used to dream about during my internship, standing mesmerized in front of the store ad. That day, Michael had pulled me inside. "If you want it, let's get it." I shook my head, mumbling, "It's over $100 for one scoop." He gripped my hand and pointed at the poster. "Wait till I make it. I'll make sure you can eat it every day." Back then, I believed him. Now he's kept that promise, but not for me. I kept scrolling, and the next post stabbed straight through my chest. Tesla pulled up right in front. He couldn't bear to see me sad, so he whisked me away on a surprise trip. Hawaii is beautiful, but with him, any place is paradise. Hawaii. That post was from before the holiday. I remembered. We had planned to go to Las Vegas. I'd booked the flights, the hotel, waited at home for him to come pick me up. But he called to say he was caught up in a project and had to cancel. I believed him. But in truth, he gave all his love to someone else and took her on a passionate getaway. I turned off my phone, but the pain in my chest spread to my lower belly, inch by inch, making it hard to breathe. Hot tears spilled over, salty and bitter on my lips. Just then, the phone rang. Michael's name appeared on the screen. I thought he was calling to push for the divorce since I hadn't answered him in days. My hand trembling, I still picked up. On the other end, his voice was breathless. "Claire, the housekeeper just found a pregnancy test behind the sofa. You're pregnant, aren't you?" I clenched the phone, voice hoarse. "Yes, I'm pregnant." He almost burst into tears. "Where are you? I'm coming right now." I was stunned. He's the one who asked for a divorce. He's the one who chose someone else. And now he's speaking like none of it ever happened. My tears flowed, stinging my face. He called my name, pleading. I took a deep breath and forced my voice steady. "Meet me at the lawyer's office tomorrow and get this finalized." He panicked. "Let me explain first. I still love you." I let out a cold laugh. "Love me? You went to Hawaii with her, got her pregnant. That's your version of love?" "I'll take care of things with Ashley. Don't get upset. You're at the clinic, right? I'm coming now." Then I heard a car door slam, the engine roar to life. I cut him off, voice calm to the point of being terrifying. "Michael, you don't need to come. The baby. I've already decided." I didn't finish the sentence before a loud crash rang out, metal colliding violently. The phone shook in my hand. I froze, screaming, "Michael!" But all that was left was the cold, endless beep of the disconnected line. The room fell into silence, with only the pounding of my heart, my breath caught in my throat, and the crushing fear tightening around my chest. The next morning, I received news from the orthopedic department. Michael had been hit by a car right at the parking lot exit. It wasn't serious, but because he was rushing to find me, he forgot to wear a seatbelt and ended up with fractured ribs, needing hospitalization. The doctor looked at me, voice hesitant. "Dr. Clare, your husband's in the hospital. Aren't you going to visit him?" I smiled faintly, lips pressed tightly together. No need. We're getting divorced. He stared at me, clearly shocked. 5 years of marriage. Michael had always been the model husband in the eyes of our colleagues. No matter how busy he was, whenever I had a night shift, he'd show up with breakfast, rain or shine. But now, all of that was nothing more than shattered memories. A nurse from orthopedics approached gently. Doctor, Claire, Mr. Michael insists on seeing you. He can't walk. If you could just... I kept my eyes on the patient chart in my hands, not even lifting my head. I'm not available. My voice was calm, but my fingers had turned white from gripping the folder too tightly. The nurse quietly left. I stepped into the hallway, trying to focus on my work, but as I turned a corner, I bumped into Ashley. She was still wearing sky-high heels, long curled hair, a messy frame around her face, eyes blazing with hostility as they swept over me like fire. I tried to step aside, but she blocked my path, raising her arm across my chest, red-painted nails flashing under the hallway lights. "Claire!" she hissed. "You really think faking a pregnancy test is gonna keep Michael? You fooled him, but you can't fool me. Woman to woman, let me give you some advice. Don't play dirty. Michael stopped loving you a long time ago. He said every time he was with you, all he felt was exhaustion." Her words cut into my chest like knives. I looked up, eyes cold. "How do you know I'm the one faking it? Maybe it's you. What, you think I'd stoop to your level?" "Bullshit!" Ashley snapped, face flushed, lunging forward to shove me. I stepped aside, and she lost her balance, stumbling, then tumbling down the stairs. A piercing scream rang out, sharp enough to make everyone nearby rush over in shock. Ashley was sprawled on the floor, limbs scraped, body trembling, her face pale with pain. She leaned against the wall, pointing at me with a shaking hand, voice shrieking, "Call the police! I want to report her! She pushed me!" "That's a lie!" Another voice rang out, firm and clear. It was Liam Davis, a surgical intern in a white lab coat, standing nearby. "I saw everything!" Ashley gritted her teeth, eyes burning with hatred as she glared at me, then turned to Liam. "You're her coworker. Of course you'd take her side." "Feel free to call the cops," I said coolly, pointing up at the ceiling where a red light blinked on the security camera. Ashley's face went ghostly pale, all color draining from her cheeks. Right then, Michael appeared, wheeling himself through the crowd. When he saw Ashley lying on the floor, his pupils shrank, voice panicked. "Doctor, what about the baby? Will the baby be okay?" The ER doctor looked up, then turned to me, confused. "Is the patient pregnant?" I shrugged, voice detached. "You'll have to ask her." Ashley stammered, unable to get a word out, and was finally lifted onto a hospital bed, still shooting me death stares. I turned around and walked into a patient room without looking back. The truth was, I had anticipated she'd get physical, so I made sure to stand exactly where the security camera would catch everything. I also knew Michael would show up soon to look for me. Sure enough, by lunch break, the clinic door flew open, and Michael rolled in on his wheelchair, his face pale, eyes red, as if he hadn't slept. He stopped in front of my desk, hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles had turned white, his voice hoarse. "Claire, you said you got rid of the baby. Is it true?" I looked at him, my eyes cold, unwavering. "Yes." Michael's brows furrowed into a tangled mess, the corner of his mouth twitching as he tried to hold back his anger. "You're so heartless. That was the child we waited for so many years." I stared directly at him until the color drained from his face and his eyes flinched away in panic. "Heartless?" I repeated, my voice like a blade. "Michael, when you betrayed our love, didn't you think you were the heartless one?" He bit his pale lips, his hands gripping the wheelchair harder, veins bulging along the backs of his hands, as if he were trying to brace himself against the storm inside. I'm just a regular man," he stammered, voice trembling. "I was wrong to let a moment of emotion override our love. I never meant to leave you." But then Ashley got pregnant. I truly didn't expect that it was fake. And you were the cruel one. I let out a dry laugh, the sound echoing through the room like cracking ice. That's betrayal? Michael, a man like you doesn't deserve to be a father. Smack. A slap landed clean across his face, the sharp sound cutting through the air like it slapped the rot out of his head. His once handsome face turned red with my handprint, and he froze, mouth open but speechless. I looked at him firmly, every word clear and deliberate. Women have the right to make decisions about their own bodies. I told you from the beginning that I had a past. Having desire for someone you love is normal. I never did anything wrong. But you said you didn't mind, then used my past as an excuse to justify cheating. Michael lowered his head, the fracture in his chest making each breath strained and painful, lips moving, but no sound coming out. I steadied my own breath, then continued calmly. You just admitted you cheated. Don't forget what you said, that you'd leave everything to me. Find time to meet at the lawyer's office and make it official. He looked up, his gaze cold. I don't agree. The assets should be split. I stared back, my tone sharp and piercing. I have screenshots from your Instagram stories, audio recordings, the flight confirmation to Hawaii in your email. You still want to split? Michael went stiff, and after a long pause, he finally managed a shaky whisper. Claire. So it's not just me who changed. You've changed too. That's right. I never cared about money. To support his career, I sold the little house my parents left me after they passed. That house held all the memories of a once happy family. The laughter of my parents, cozy nights by the fireplace, the only peaceful childhood I had left after losing them. Even during the toughest years of med school, I couldn't bring myself to sell it. I survived off discounted food for a month, worked myself to the bone. But for him, I gave it up. I once believed that if two people fought for the same future, any sacrifice was worth it. But in the end, I was just destroying everything for someone who wasn't worth it. Not long after we married, his company hit a financial crisis. I gritted my teeth and sold the house, never once complaining. He said, full of promises, "One day I'll pay you back 100-fold." But what did he give me in return? Bitter words about my past. A young mistress with a fake pregnancy. A cold divorce like we never loved. That's what he called paying me back? When I had no home, he brought another woman into mine and did filthy things on my bed. I never chased material things. All I wanted was a genuine partner, a loyal love. But he couldn't give me that. And if there's no love left, then all that remains is money. Leaving me all the assets is the price he must pay, and it's also what's owed to my child. The divorce took 3 long months to finalize. On the day we went to court, it poured rain. The raindrops slammed against the car windows like drums pounding on my chest. I wore a slightly flared dress, loose enough to hide my small baby bump. When I arrived, Michael was already there. He looked unshaven, clothes wrinkled and plain, a far cry from the polished man he used to be. The moment the gavel struck, I felt a weight lift from my whole body, like I had been freed from something that had crushed me for too long. We walked out of the courthouse, one after the other. Just then, a white BMW swerved in from across the street, stopping. With a loud screech, Ashley jumped out from the driver's seat, beaming, and ran straight to Michael, hugging him tightly, voice syrupy. "It's done now, right, babe?" Michael froze, then awkwardly peeled her arms off, shooting me a glance. Ashley pouted, still clinging to him. "You used to never let me call you that unless we were in bed. But now you're free, aren't you?" She looked down, smirked, and gently rubbed her belly. "And besides, we're going to be parents soon." Then she looked up and stared straight at me, her tone sweet but mocking. "It's real this time, over a month now. Guess I'll be seeing Dr. Claire for the prenatal visits." Before she could finish, Michael grabbed her roughly and shoved her into the car, snapping, "Get in!" The BMW roared away into the rain, its engine growling along with the storm. After they left, the rain grew heavier, colder. I couldn't get an Uber and stood under the awning, rain splashing on my feet. Just then, a black Lexus pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, and a familiar voice called out, "Doctor!" "Claire, need a ride somewhere?" It was Liam Davis, the surgical intern who'd once stood up for me in the hallway. I opened the door and got in the passenger seat, my voice tired. "Maple Grove Apartments, if it's not too far out of the way." His handsome face lit up with a subtle smile. "It's on the way." He turned the AC down, and I lowered my head, a little shy, coughing lightly. That day, I learned. He lived there too. After that, I took a short break from work and traveled to Las Vegas alone. Turns out, solo trips can be incredible. You don't have to coordinate schedules with anyone. Don't have to accommodate anyone's preferences. I wandered the neon-lit streets, the cool desert breeze brushing through my hair, and for the first time in months, I felt free, as if all the pain had finally started to dissolve under the shimmering lights. A CT8. After returning to work from my trip, I didn't expect to run into Michael right outside the operating room. He was standing there, visibly panicked. The moment his eyes met mine, "Claire!" he whispered, voice trembling as if on the verge of breaking, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles had turned ghost white. I furrowed my brows, trying to suppress the discomfort rising in my chest. Out of professional instinct as a doctor, I turned to the nurse beside me and asked, "How's the patient inside?" The nurse glanced at the room, her voice soft and filled with worry. 12 weeks pregnant, experiencing severe bleeding, can't keep the baby. Dr. Taylor is prepping for the procedure, but the patient won't cooperate. She's extremely agitated." Michael immediately jumped up from the waiting room bench, rushed over and grabbed both of my hands, his fingers ice cold and trembling, gripping me like I was the last rope keeping him from drowning. "Claire, I'm begging you, please help Ashley." His voice cracked, and tears dropped heavily onto the floor. "She's just a kid. It's her first time being a mom. She doesn't know anything." I pulled my hands away instantly, the contact with his skin sending chill down my spine, like I had touched something filthy. "This is a hospital," I said coldly, staring at him without the slightest pity. "Please compose yourself." He froze for a moment, face contorting with pain, then let go of my hands and backed away a few steps. I turned and headed into the sterilization room, prepared the necessary tools, then pushed the door open to the operating room. Ashley was sitting on the surgical bed, hair disheveled, face flushed from crying, eyes swollen. "No one touches my baby!" she screamed, clutching her belly tightly. When the door shut behind me, she suddenly whipped her head around, eyes wild like a cornered animal. "It's you! You're trying to harm me!" I replied evenly, voice flat and emotionless, eyes on her like any other patient. "If you want to transfer hospitals, I'll notify your family right away." Dr. Taylor looked at me, voice serious and heavy with concern. "If we don't operate now, she might need a full hysterectomy." Ashley instantly froze, her face drained of all color, then suddenly let out a laugh. But it wasn't human. It was like a fractured spirit cracking apart. The nurse beside me whispered, voice shaking, "She really has no regard for her own body." Dr. Taylor said she's already had several procedures in the past. I paused, then asked softly, "Has her family been informed?" The nurse shook her head. "There hasn't been time yet." Maybe the cramps started hitting her harder. Ashley, who had just been laughing, suddenly curled up on the bed, clutching her stomach, face twisted in pain, sweat beading on her forehead. After they got surgical consent from her family, anesthesia was administered, and I chose to step away from the operation to avoid suspicion or trouble, quietly exiting the room. Dr. Taylor's office was across from mine, and through the frosted glass, I could vaguely hear her speaking to Michael, her voice low and comforting, laced with sighs. Not long after, the door to my office was flung open with a loud bang that echoed down the hallway. Michael stood there, his face ashen like burnt ashes, eyes bloodshot and red. "Claire?" He stumbled in, voice cracking apart. Claire, I'm sorry. I. I cut him off, voice cold as ice. No need to apologize. Between us, everything ended the day we divorced. I got the money. You got your freedom. Michael, go. Don't interfere with my work. Michael looked stunned, his eyes dull and unfocused, his expression fading into emptiness like a walking corpse. He stumbled back, then collapsed onto the hallway floor, leaning against the cold wall, looking pitifully haggard, both hands covering his head, shoulders trembling. People came and went in hurried footsteps, chatter and laughter blending in the background, but Michael seemed unaware of it all, as if he had drifted into an entirely separate world, alone and lost in despair. I don't even know when he left. A nurse later told me, voice full of sympathy, Michael's not doing well mentally. He sat there for hours. When my shift ended, night had already fallen. Neon signs along the street flashed garishly, red, green, all blending like unhealed wounds. I suddenly remembered something from long ago, when Michael and I went to a bar. In the women's restroom, the walls were covered in random ads, but one stuck with me to this day. Restore your private confidence. Safe, affordable, only $500. So cheap it was bitter. Just like the love I once gave my whole heart to. Only $500. To erase the trace of a 10-year love story. A humiliating number, yet it became the scale used to weigh love's worth. Became the excuse a man used to betray and trample it. 10 years of love, of enduring hardships together, only to lose to one lie. Ridiculous and heartbreaking. So bitterly ironic. Lately, Michael had been waiting outside the clinic gate every day, looking like a ghost, gaunt and aimless. Today was no different. He rushed over, his voice hoarse with pleading. Claire, just give me a moment. I just want to talk. I stopped, not out of softness, but because the anger boiling in my chest needed an outlet. Michael, stop interfering with my work, I snapped, my voice sharp like a blade, shoving him out of the way, my eyes sweeping over him with disgust. He tried to press into my hand a bouquet of deep red roses, petals still wet like they'd just been picked, along with a cold Haagen-Dazs tub. Claire, you like roses. And ice cream, too. I remember you said you liked this flavor. His voice trembled as he clutched the bouquet so tightly, a few petals fell limply to the ground. I pushed it away, and after a bit of struggling, the bouquet hit the concrete with a dull thud, petals scattering like spilled blood, while the ice cream tub shattered, melting into a smeared trail of off-white sludge beneath the sweltering afternoon sun. A mess, chaotic and irreparable, just like our relationship, already broken beyond saving. Now only pieces and pain remain. Please don't come again, I said firmly, no hesitation in my voice, my gaze fixed on him like I was looking at a stranger. Michael let his arms fall to his sides and quietly walked back to his car. If there's one thing I'm grateful for after our breakup, it's that I never once considered giving up my job. My career was the thing that kept me from falling apart. My anchor during the most shattered and lonely days. A place where I could focus on healing others to forget my own wounds. When Michael's career was thriving, he once asked me to quit and stay home as a full-time housewife. His voice sweet but full of conviction. Claire, you don't need to work so hard anymore. I refused instantly. My work was my backbone, my pride. And now I know I was right, because when I walked away from that relationship, I didn't fall apart. I still had somewhere to go every morning. I still had patients who needed me, and that was enough to keep me standing through the storm. Tonight after work, in the cramped elevator, I happened to run into Liam, the warm-smiled surgical intern who always seemed to make the air feel lighter. Claire, he said gently, pressing the button for our floor, let's walk home together. I nodded slightly, a quiet warmth blooming inside me after a long, exhausting day. Thanks. Liam smiled, that spring breeze smile that curled his eyes at the corners, bright and full of life. It was rush hour, and cars were lining up in the parking lot. I'd known for a month that Liam lived across from me. As we stepped out of the elevator, I softly said thank you, again, and we each turned to unlock our doors. A moment later, the doorbell rang. I glanced through the peephole, heart beating faster, and exhaled. It was Liam. He stood there, his hair still wet, drops of water dripping onto his shoulders. I opened the door, surprised. What happened? Liam smiled sheepishly, scratching his head, bare-chested, with only a towel loosely wrapped around his waist, the faint scent of soap drifting in the air. Claire, sorry to bother you. I was mid-shower when my water cut off. Mind if I borrow your bathroom for a bit? I hesitated, my heart racing, then stepped aside, voice soft. Sure, come in. He walked in naturally. When he closed the bathroom door and the water started running, I scrambled to find a drink to calm myself. When he stepped out, his body was still damp, a faint mist clinging to him like a soft veil, his tousled hair dripping onto the floor. Claire, do you have a hairdryer? He asked, warm voice gentle as he brushed his wet hair back. Yeah, I'll grab it, I replied, voice slightly stuttering, head down, too flustered to look at him, my cheeks burning. As I passed him to grab the dryer from the cabinet, the scent of soap between us made my heart pound. Suddenly, he gently caught my wrist, his fingers warm and firm enough to stop me in place, my breath quickening. Claire, he whispered, his voice low and teasing. Your face is red. I kept my head down, my heart thudding as if it would leap out of my chest, unsure if it was embarrassment or something quietly awakening inside me, like a breeze rustling leaves that had been still for far too long. Liam stood there, droplets of water glistening on his shoulder, his eyes soft and playful. But I simply smiled, took a step back, and allowed a gentle but clear distance to form between us. A boundary, invisible, but deliberate. From that night on, Liam began appearing in my life for the smallest reasons, yet somehow they filled the vast emptiness within me. Some nights, he'd bring over a steaming pot of soup, saying, Moms-to-be need nutrition, and he'd stand in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring slowly, like he was blending in quiet care. Other times, he'd sit patiently on the floor, assembling every piece of the baby crib with such focus that it felt like he was building a tiny castle, solid and ready for the future. He never rushed to confess his feelings, never pushed, just let his eyes grow warmer every time they met mine. I understood that look, but I wasn't ready. For now, I wanted to give everything to the baby inside me, to morning coffees I brewed with my own hands, to evening walks in the park alone, to quiet nights flipping through parenting books, trying to rediscover who I was. Claire Evans, the woman who had once been strong and independent before she was swallowed by a failed marriage. Liam seemed to understand. He came grocery shopping with me, watched documentaries on Netflix beside me, sometimes just sat silently on the balcony as we listened to the city's hum, so I could remember that some silences are safe. One day, I told him honestly, I'm not sure I'm ready to love someone again. My child is my only priority. He looked at me, eyes steady and kind. Claire, I'm not in a rush. I'll wait until you're ready. I froze, not because of the sweetness of his words, but because of their sincerity, their complete lack of demand. For the first time, I felt a man truly respecting my pace, never forcing, never taking. News about Michael came like a passing breeze. After all the lies, Ashley couldn't hold on to him. He began drifting from one drunken stupor to another. I heard, but my heart didn't move. He was just a name now, like a character written out of my story. Time passed, and I grew used to Liam's quiet presence. He wasn't a lover, nor just a friend, but something more like a companion, walking beside me on the long road of rebuilding. I haven't put a name to what we are, but I know if the day comes when I open my heart, he'll still be there, with that mischievous smile and gentle gaze, waiting. And then, one peaceful evening, as the autumn breeze slipped through my window, Liam grinned and confessed. That night, the water in my apartment, it wasn't really out. I just made up an excuse to see you. I looked at him, not angry, not embarrassed, just still inside, like a lake after the storm has passed. Because sometimes, new beginnings come from clumsy little excuses. My life now feels like a small garden after the rain, still damp, but with green shoots starting to rise. I take care of myself, practice prenatal yoga, walk beneath the trees, and savor every breath of freedom. I no longer search the past for answers. I look forward, where my child awaits, and where a man stands, patiently waiting for me to walk toward him in my own time. And I've realized, some losses don't end a life, they begin a new chapter.